but they didn't. And they start screwing around when Congress was at a session, and this kind of provokes Congress to get really mad. This provokes Republicans. Some of the things they did provoked the North to act. One of them is the development of something called black codes. Okay? Black codes are really going to be around up until like the 1960s. The people who are African American today, who are in your generation, maybe my, I guess we're probably in different generations, but I mean, most people my age don't have 16-year-olds. Well, I guess I'm 67. I don't know what I'm doing. But mine and your generation are the first people to grow up without having real, like, legal limitations, specifically in the South. Black codes are laws designed to take away the rights of African Americans. And I'll talk about some of these laws as we go on, but some of them are pretty harsh. And we'll talk more about them. But like some examples are like literacy tests, poll taxes. So for instance, if you, after 1870, when African American males had the right to vote, when you would go to vote, you might get a test to read, right? Well, first of all, they didn't give those tests to poor. I mean, did most white people in the South could read? No. Poor whites couldn't read very much, right? But they only gave them to poor. They only gave them to black people, and many black people could read. And there's actually a great thing you're going to read about. It's a great, that's horrible. It's an interesting story. In Black Like Me, there was a college professor who was black, and this was in 1960, who went to go vote, and he couldn't pass the literacy test. He's a professor. Because they gave him a Chinese newspaper. They said, read this. He said, I can't read it. It's in Mandarin. You can't vote. You can't pass the test. What's the whole purpose behind doing this? There was a huge percentage of African Americans in some of these states, right? Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Louisiana had huge black populations. And what do you think one of the fears was of the white people? Yeah, it's the same fear that WASPs had in the North when the crossbacks were coming over, right? They're having the same fear that black people are going to begin to exercise their rights and start to vote. Yeah, start block voting. And to be fair, do African Americans block vote today? Yes. Yeah, in fact, it's the most pure block vote of any racial or any kind of minority group, right? Actually, the two biggest block votes are African Americans and white Southern Protestant males. White Southern Protestant males tend to vote what on almost every election? Republican. And black people tend to vote Democrat. There was a really, really funny Saturday Night Live skit a couple weeks ago. Do you know who Kerry Washington is? She's an African-American actress. Did you see her on SNL? Yeah. Oh my God, it was hysterical. And there was a skit called What Would It Take? And the whole thing was, what would it take for you not to support President Obama? Oh, yeah. It was really funny. They were like, the president only has a 42% approval rating. And it's even worse amongst black people. It's down to 93.9%. But they were worried about block voting. So one of the things they did was set up literacy tests and poll taxes. And this became worse and worse as time went on. What's a poll tax, do you think?
Pay money to vote.
Yeah, the polls are when you vote, right? So you have to pay money to go and vote. Well, let me ask you a question. Do most black people have a ton of money that they can start paying to vote? No. No. So this is a way to keep African Americans disenfranchised. Do you know when poll taxes became illegal? 1964. It was an amendment. They had to pass an amendment to make sure it didn't get passed. 1964. I don't know if you know this, UK did not allow an African American human to get into the school until 1965. Think about that. Are any of your parents 45 years old?
Yes.
Or I guess it'd be older today, right? So that's what, 35 or so 48 years old or more, right? They could. Anyone's parents 48 or more?
Yes. Yes.
That means your parents were alive when black people did not go to UK. That's not that long ago, right? I mean, you might see your parents as being old. I used to. Now I see your parents as, you know,
Democrats.
Right, they come over for drinks. Yes.
There's this one skit, and it's called Black Republicans, and
On what?
I can't remember their names, but they're on Comedy Central.
Oh, Key and Peele.
Yeah.
Oh, Chico, yeah. Which like Chappelle show. Did you see Chappelle's? You ever watch the Chappelle show? The black KKK guy who's blind. I'm so sad that he's not on TV anymore. So black codes become something, and in reaction, the North gets really mad. A couple of things the South did was former Confederate leaders, including the Vice President of the Confederacy, Alexander Stephens, starts being elected to offices in these states. This is like a big slap in the face of the North, right? This can, what? It still makes me mad. I don't know why, and I'm a pacifist. I don't even believe in war or violence. And it kind of makes me mad that we didn't line up all the Confederate leaders and shoot them in a shallow grave. Is that mean? I mean, think about that. Think about how moderate this is, right? These people had a giant insurgency and a violent attack against their own nation, leading to 600,000 deaths, and nobody was put to death for it. Remember when we talked about what was like when John Hancock signed his big name in the Declaration of Independence, right? And all those guys did, they're basically signing their death notice. Because what were they doing?
Committing treason.
They were committing treason. Why is it that Robert E. Lee wasn't committing treason?
Because they could still talk.
Why was it that, it was more rhetorical, why was it that Alexander Stephens didn't? Or Jefferson Davis didn't? And so it's bad enough for the North, for radical Republicans, it's bad enough they didn't go to jail for the rest of their lives or be shot, but now they're running for office. And what do you think they plan to do when they get to office? The exact same thing they did before they were in office, right? So because of this, we get the radical Reconstruction, right? Let's talk about sharecropping too, because this is also awful. All right, I'm a really good artist, Amber, so don't try to do this. All right? All right, this is a farm. Are you ready? Farm.
It's an Iowa.
Masterpiece.
Yeah, it's a farm in Iowa.
It's obviously Montana.
Anyway, so let's say this was a plantation, right? So here's the big house up here, and then the slaves are farming this land, right? But now the war is over. But black coats become ingrained quickly into society. They start spreading through the South. And this new idea of farming comes up called sharecropping. And here's how sharecropping works. And I want you to listen and see what this is doing to people. So now, every sharecropper gets a share of land, okay? So let's say each sharecropper, each family gets a share of land, okay? So Tevis and Tiger will, and even... I've just gone blank. I'm horrible. See? Cold. I really do know you. In fact, I talked very well about you yesterday to Moon. Not you, Tevis. We trashed you. But, so Cole and Tevis and Tiger are each going to have, and they would get a little shack built for them, right? And they might even get a cow.
That's the greatest cow ever.
Yes.
It really looks like a cat.
Alright? And they...
Wait, whose is that? 'Cause I don't see another guy.
This is Tevis's.
Oh.
Alright? And just imagine your house. You want me to draw one for everybody?
Yes.
I'm a cat cow.
Yeah, give him a mule.
I want a donkey. That's what the South always said. Cow says moo.
It's a cat with 3
The tail is huge.
That's Bessie.
What is going
Yeah,
Is that bear?
Alright.
Hey, I want the best cow. We're going on.
Alright. And you're given some seed. Alright? To plant your... It's a really big seed. To plant your cotton. Alright? So... This is, can I see this by the way? Drawn and nobody's watching. All right. So here's a sharecropping farm, okay? Here's how this works. So let's say that I'm the owner of the farm, and Tevis and Cole and Tiger have this in their family, okay? Let's say they're growing cotton. Here's how it works. This is called, sharecropping has a payment system called the crop lien system. You ever heard of a lien before? Like a lien is like something you owe, right? A lien on your house or a lien on your car. And so what happens is, let's say that each one of these guys' families is going to owe me 500 bushels of cotton. And anything over that 500 bushels, you can sell for money. You with me? Everybody with me?
Yeah.
But here's the thing: if you don't make 500 bushels, let's say you grow 300, and you grow 300, and you grow 300. All right. So now, what's the problem for you?
You ain't got enough.
You're negative 200, and next year, guess what you're gonna have to grow?
700.
500 more, right? So now you're at 700. You with me? Right? So you're working and you're giving me everything you make. Okay? With me so far? That's the crop lien system. Okay, here's where it actually gets worse. The owner never had to show these people how much they wanted. They just said, nah, I wasn't enough. Secondly, if you owed money, if you owed crops, if you were in debt, black codes were written where you legally could not leave the land unless you paid the owner back everything you owed the owner. You could not, if you left, they could come and get you and put you back on this land and make you keep farming it until you paid it back. What does this sound like?
Slavery.
Many slaves ended up being ex-slaves who worked on the exact same land they had been slaves on, doing almost the exact same thing. So the sharecropping system and the poll tax and the black codes these are other black codes. Another black code would have been, for instance, that black people couldn't have guns. Why couldn't black people have guns? Because it was a threat to white people. There was another black code that black people, other than church, black people could not have meetings with many black people unless a white person was there to supervise. Why?
They didn't want an insurrection.
They didn't want any kind of plotting. Another black code said you could vote so long as your grandfather voted. They're called grandfather clauses. Well, what's the problem if you're a slave and now you're freed? Who didn't vote? Your grandfather didn't. But now think about this. Let's say you have kids and they have kids. You didn't vote, so guess what their kids are going to do? Not vote. And guess what their kids are going to do? Not vote. You get to show proof that your grandfather voted. These are examples of black codes. These are the examples